No fewer than 11 northern states have beefed up security around schools to prevent the abduction of pupils by bandits interstates, and that's according to an investigative report by this day newspaper, our sister platform. These incidents have fueled concerns that a number of out-of-school children in the north might increase, as parents might be discouraged from sending their children to school. To avoid this development, the Sokoto state government has taken drastic measures to avoid the recurrence of the Kankara and Jengebe incident. Sokoto State has merged boarding schools in border towns with those in towns, as well as beef up security in all the schools with a directive to security agencies to ensure a 24-hour patrol of all schools. The Sokoto State Police Command said it has introduced Operation Puff Harder 2 to curb criminals and bandits in the state. Tundu?
Well, it's further confirmation, not that we needed any, that the state boundaries are particularly vulnerable. Otherwise, those boarding schools along those areas would not be specified in this fashion. So there are lots of measures being taken, police stations, extra security personnel, fencing. In Niger State, they mentioned fencing. Which reminds me, the Senate is investigating what happened to 2 billion naira that was budgeted for the Safe School initiative. And we're looking forward to that report because that has to be implemented to the letter. Since 2014, we have all these lovely policies and they're just not implemented. Even now, with all the measures the different states are taking, 3 words are not mentioned. Safe School initiative. What is the point of having these policies? We always seem to revert to going back to the drawing board each time rather than building on and constantly strengthening and improving. So that ought to be looked into as well.
Dr. Abati?
Well, I think the problem is about the safety of children in schools. So you're absolutely right to refer to the Safe School Initiative. That Safe School Initiative was introduced, I think, in 2014 under the Jonathan administration. And I recall that former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Gordon Brown, was involved in that initiative. The chairman of This Day, Arise TV, was also involved in collaboration also with Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And the whole idea then was part of the response to the Chibok girls, abduction at that time. And we had the United Nations, we had the Safe School Initiative backed by the United Nations to address that. Now, you will recall that recently, President Buhari himself referred to that Safe Schools Initiative. And he was hoping that something will be done in that direction. Okay, now we have the governors of about 11 states, from Sokoto to Zamfara to Nasarawa to Kano, Kaduna, all the states meeting and saying that they will do something to ensure the safety of the students. I'm skeptical. Why am I skeptical? Since 1957, leaders of the North, political leaders, governors, administrators, they've been holding meetings about how to address the education challenge in the North. To date, we don't see what they've been able to achieve, one generation after another. In 1955, the Western region, as it then was in Nigeria, introduced the what they call the universal free primary education, free education. Now, the East followed suit. At some point, the East even more or less overtook the West. Leaders of the North have been talking about being serious about education in the North since 1957. They too followed the example of the West and the East. But today, the West remains the most challenged part of Nigeria in terms of education. Out of the 15 million, the North rather, out of the 15 million out-of-school children that UNICEF tells us, the majority is in the northern part of the country. So it's not just about dealing with security of the students, whether it's in Dapchi or Jangebe or in Kankara or in Kangara. It is about ensuring that children in the North are not out of school, that all initiatives introduced, even by Southern presidents, that they work. President Jonathan had these schools that he provided in the North. Many of those schools today are not being allowed to function. So there is a challenge of leadership. It's not about meetings. It's not about promises. It's not about the governor saying, hey, we will protect the schools, we will do this, we will do that. We have been hearing such promises for more than how many years now? Okay? So we would like to see dedication the major crisis in the North with regard to education is how the elite class in that part of the country has consistently failed the people. And we need to see more seriousness in that regard. So education is one, but there are also other issues. But basically, we expect that children who go to school, whether in the North or the East or the West or the South, any part of Nigeria, should be safe. Now, one of the things they are looking at is the boarding school system. If the boarding school system is no longer going to work in the North because of the threat of banditry and terrorism, can it be suspended? Instead of them making promises that they cannot fulfill. Okay, do we have enough policemen who can provide security in those schools? Are we going to draft soldiers to go and begin to protect those boarding schools? Do we even have enough soldiers to face the challenge of insecurity in the northeast, eastern flank of the country and the other commitments that soldiers have? If it is not possible to maintain those boarding schools, maybe the North should just stop having boarding schools and allow these students to be day students. Because all the cases we have had, from Dapchi to Chibok to Kankara to Jangebe to Kangara, they are all incidents affecting boarding schools. So we would like to see some rigorous thinking, and we would like to see leadership in terms of education in the North.
And good point you made, Dr. But I mean, in the 50s, the North had primary school enrollment rate of 250,000, while the South and the West and the East had primary school enrollment rate over 1.2 million. And that's to show the gulf that has always existed, 250,000 to 1.2 million. And that's a far cry. Leadership must come up and do what is right for its people. That's all on News Alert. We'll take a short break now. Every time we have Ruth Zadiri, Michael Wilson, Adesu Amoro, Aaron Akirilo to give us updates on Africa Global Business COVID-19 sport and activities. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. Let's go straight to it now. Ruth Zadiri, how you doing? Great to have you.
I'm doing fine, Rufai. Good morning to you. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Tundu. We kick things off with yet another reminder of the impact of rising crude oil prices on PMS. We just heard, and I'm sure Michael Wilson will get into the details with you in a moment, but basically there was a targeted Saudi Arabia oil terminal by a drone strike, and it pushed oil prices as of early this morning to over $70 a barrel. As of right now, I think it's about $70.68 or so. So just as a reminder to everyone, at least for the Nigerian space, as we continue to see crude oil climbing, I think now the year-to-date return for crude oil now is either 35 or 40% or so. There is still that impact on the downstream sector to where what is the landing costs now going to be, and what is this going to do with respect to, or how is this going to impact the ongoing negotiations with the federal government and labor. So again, this is just something that happened earlier this morning with Saudi Arabia reporting this. Crude continues to climb, and there's just so many bullish triggers for crude oil. I think Joe Biden is on the verge of getting his stimulus bill passed. You've got different brokerage houses like Goldman Sachs saying that oil could hit $80 a barrel by the third quarter. You've got the COVID-19 vaccine outlay. President Buhari got his sort over the weekend, so the Vice President Osibanjo. And then around the world, the optimism around the vaccine. So that is a trigger saying that we might be getting back to normal soon. So these are all triggers that are pushing crude oil up. And then you now add this attack, or this targeted attack. I don't think it affected output at Saudi Arabia's terminal. But again, all these triggers pushing crude oil upwards means that Nigerians should prepare to pay higher prices at the pump, because it's going to further put pressure on oil marketers and so on and so forth. So again, it's just a reminder, anytime we're hearing that crude oil is going up for some reason, think about the impact on the downstream sector. To the Central Bank of Nigeria, over the weekend, the central bank released a circular which effectively kicked off its Naira for Dollar scheme. The Central Bank of Nigeria's Naira for Dollar scheme is a remittance booster. That is international remittance inflows coming into the country. Remember, back on December the 4th of last year, the central bank liberalized the receipts of international IMTOs, that's International Money Transfer Operator remittances from the diaspora coming into Nigeria. They essentially told the IMTOs, listen, you are to allow Nigerians collect remittance flows coming in foreign exchange in either foreign exchange cash or transfers into the domiciliary accounts. With this scheme that kicks off today, March the 8th, and ends on May 8th, they are giving 5 Naira for every $1 received in remittances. So it's supposed to incentivize Nigerians in the diaspora to send more money here. And so for every $1 you receive, you get 5 Naira. So if you get $1,000, you're going to get 5,000 Naira as an incentive deposited into your Naira account. So, remittances, I think, are second only to crude oil in terms of, FX inflows for Nigeria. I think it was about 24, 25 or $29 billion that came in 2019. COVID has, of course, affected things in 2020. There's expected to be a dip. But over the weekend, Governor Emefiele attended a webinar, which we carried, was hosted by Fidelity Bank. And it was a diaspora dialogue webinar, which was supposed to, talk about the benefits of diaspora inflows and how Nigeria's financial sector, championed by the central bank, is helping to boost that. So this is just it's a promotional thing that is supposed to bring more FX in. Bangladesh is doing the same thing as well. I believe there's been a promo floating around from HSBC giving 2% incentives to people in Bangladesh, in diaspora, that send money back home to folks at home in Bangladesh. So it's a similar program that's going on. To the ports, there was an accident over the weekend. There was an overloaded ferry that was transporting, this is an amateur video that was shot over the weekend. There was an overloaded ferry that was transporting items, containers from Apapa to Mile 2. As a result of it being overloaded, all these containers ended up falling into the water, and it's estimated that a lot of items have been destroyed. Why are the ferries being overloaded? And you think about the amount of time it takes to get items released from the ports into the mainland. I think it's something that pressures. It puts pressure because of the underhanded things that are going on there. With an effort to try to get as many containers out of the port as possible, you end up seeing them being overloaded, and this is unfortunately one of the outcomes of that. I certainly hope that they have insurance and there are not too many perishable goods in there. Finally, it's International Women's Day, and the theme is to choose to challenge gender bias and inequality. It is something that is prevalent here in the business world, in Africa, around the world. So, and I think a lot of men have to also participate in this here, and corporations with their code of conduct when it comes to highlighting or highlighting gender bias and inequality, 2, trying to put in policies within the public and private sector that can reduce them.
Well, Rotus, excellent stories, great stories. The first, with regard to the Naira for Dollar initiative, which is based on the Bangladeshi model. Yeah, it has worked in Bangladesh, but in Bangladesh, there are terms and conditions. There's a limit of $1,500 US. If you exceed that, then you will need to come up with details as to the source of the money. But here in Nigeria, the CBN has not yet told us what the terms and conditions are. Maybe they will come up with that subsequently. But it's an acknowledgement on the part of the CBN that, foreign remittances play a major role in ensuring liquidity. And it is curious to see the Central Bank of Nigeria competing with the black market, because this is about competition, and the CBN also trying to track foreign currency inflow. But I guess at the end of the day, a lot will depend on Nigerians in diaspora, because we're talking about diaspora remittances. What is the condition of Nigerians in the diaspora at this time of COVID-19? Take Brexit, take COVID-19, all the other issues are selling Nigerians abroad. But there is no doubt that foreign remittances constitute a major source of foreign exchange in Nigeria. But I hope that the CBN will take another look at the Bangladesh model and see perhaps what they have done in Bangladesh that made it work and what we can do also here in terms of inflow of foreign currency. Now you talked about oil price. Okay, it's now over $67. Tomorrow it may be $80. What, in your opinion, do you think we really need to do? Because when we discuss this, it looks like the federal government has also abandoned his own market forces idea that the Minister of State for Petroleum articulated in April 2020. Okay. And at the same time, you look at it, it could even get to 100. So what are we relying on? Dangote refinery, or the government will have to come up with certain ideas? Because it looks that there's subsidy in place right now.
Correct. Correct. You're right, Doctor. And the thing is, look, again, Timi Pre-Silva, Minister of State for Petroleum, said that Nigerians have to be prepared to pay higher fuel at the pump. Right? Again, this is from Timi Pre-Silva. So the government has to follow up with its pronouncement that the downstream sector is deregulated. That they're under pressure from labor, and that's the issue right now. Again, we saw the notice from the NNPC. Remember when the NNPC said that, listen, they don't want to jeopardize the negotiations with labor, also want to put undue hardship on Nigerians. That argument isn't working.
Okay, Rotus, but another argument I'd like to put forward is the alternatives Team Pressy has talked about. The CNG and some other alternatives they said they were going to create to be able to cushion the effect. It's time to diversify the energy sector. Thank you so much for your time, Rotus.
Thank you.
We'll talk about global business very soon. After this quick commercial break, we'll be right back. We'll talk to Michael Wilson. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. Moving on to business update with Michael Wilson. Michael, great to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. Volatility. Good morning, everybody. Volatility is actually continuing, and what we're seeing is this kind of tug of war between economic recovery and inflation risks, basically. Which is it? Pfizer is we're looking to what happened to the United States on Friday, that huge 379,000 job gain in the non-farm payrolls. That caused US yields to spike, obviously, but equity markets finally said to themselves, what this is not an inflation story, it's a recovery story. So that they ended up very, very slightly. China, first of all, then, so their exports, absolute bonanza, balance of trade, exploded in dollar terms to 103.25 billion. That's for January, February. And for all the noise about how it compares with the previous year, it's very good indeed. Same period last year was the start of the recession. So really, to get to this level is saying a lot of very, very impressive things about China trade. By contrast, their current account this morning disappointed, rising only 646 billion. That's half the number expected, mainly due to gas and oil prices actually being much more expensive for them, makes their imports much more expensive. Now, for China, one of their senior observers has been saying it's at least 30 years away, get this, from becoming a manufacturing nation of great power. This is at the People's Political Consultative Conference, which was going on over the weekend. Basic capabilities are still weak. The message from that is that what China is actually doing is developing all those kind of industries that it has to import now, worried about possible tariffs in the future, and therefore building up strong industrial defences. Therefore, Asia markets then, that attempted drone attack that Rotus was talking about on the giant Saudi Arabia oil refinery caused a bit of a spike. Brent crude now well above $70 a barrel, and the Nikkei now down, as is the other China composite as well, basically because they are importers of oil and they're worried about about the way that prices are going to go. US recap, as we said, the US stimulus thing passed through the Senate. It now, as I understand it, is in metaphorical terms on Joe Biden's desk. 1.9 trillion package, been tweaked very, very slightly. As it moves through, the real question is, are people actually going to spend the money? If you look at what's happened in the past in the United States, yes, they will. Wall Street actually had an emotional session on Friday worrying about exactly these kind of things, as well as the slight improvement in those jobs figures. But that's what we'll be monitoring. Will this money actually be spent? European markets also troubling some overseas investors is the progress of the vaccine program, which is actually comparatively very, very slow. Look at the kind of economies that want to attract tourism into them as well, including Italy, Spain and Greece. They're actually quite vulnerable at the moment. Remarkably, the DAX index in Germany, despite Germany's economic woes, has actually done reasonably well. So maybe that'll continue. That upbeat mood is felt somehow to be continuing as the week progresses. Bring you back to the UK. So schools go back in England today, which is part of the United Kingdom, not huge, the major part, but schools go back. Question is this a return to normality? That means that more parents can actually get back into the workforce. That's the thought about it. It is International Women's Day today, and it's being marked all the way through the UK, as it is internationally too. A couple of statistics which are quite important. Here, the average will retire with £100,000 less in her pension. That's according to Scottish widows. Those kind of inequalities will continue. Been talking to a number of people over the weekend about this. One of my favourite commentators, she says that actually what you need to do, I've said this before, is not so much get women into the boardroom, but get them into industry, so that there's a good flow of women going into senior positions who've also worked in businesses rather than just coming from outside as non-executive directors. I think that's probably quite important. A couple of corporate bits of news for you. Aston Martin, it's pledged to have its electric car built in the UK. We talked about the float of Deliveroo, the bicycle delivery service. Their busiest riders will get bonuses of up to £10,000 if this IPO actually goes ahead. Probably suspect it will. And the company is expected to be valued around about £5 billion. Commodities, yes, we've done the oil price. Basically, that drone attack added to all those kind of other bullish. Bullish always sounds good. It's not good in this case, but you know what I'm talking about. And gold itself, well, a bit of a dead cat bounce, quite honestly. Up very, very slightly, but not a lot. We're talking about 1707 an ounce, so it's still there. ECB rate this week ahead. That's basically what the action is about now. Pandemic emergency asset program increased from 1.35 to 1.85 trillion, if you know, last year. It helps by a bit of time, and the ECB will be very, very anxious to say that it has plenty of ammunition left. Who knows? Maybe it does. UK GDP, that will have seen a bit of a rise in December, but not a lot. We saw those figures in the budget saying that 2021, 2022 would see a rapid rise as people actually get back to work and the rest of it, but tapers off from there. We may get more information about that. And we get inflation figures in the United States as well. So that's your week ahead. Busy as far as statistics are concerned. Still the major questions, though. Are we looking at inflation or are we looking at growth?
Okay, Michael, great prospect. A couple of things I just want to happen. Number one will be crude oil prices. $70 per barrel and 67 cents thereabout. The price keeps nudging up. Is this good times? And I'm asking, is this good times because only last week, the likes of Volvo and some other people are saying we're getting off this commodity by 10 years' time, about 9 years' time. We're in 2021, they're saying 2030. So is it good time for oil? You know, does that bolster the argument you keep making that, oh, we're not going to hit peak oil anytime soon? Second question will be, for me, coming out of America. S&P 500, where most of the tech guys will normally go to stock exchange, it's not been doing well quite in the year. The tech stocks are not doing good. You know, what does that portend for America? Because somebody will have thought that when there's a resurgence of those tech stocks, then a lot of people can buy in, you know, to that economic compass. And thirdly, the nightmares, what are the possible nightmares that are before the UK economy amidst all of this, you know, rising unemployment numbers and inflation numbers with the budget? Does this budget really do it for you?
Budget, first of all, no, it doesn't, and there's been plenty of fallout about that over the weekend here. No, it didn't address the main problem, which you put your finger on, which is growth and productivity in the UK economy. I said that last week. I didn't feel it did. But then again, I suppose in its defence, it wasn't really meant to. I think what the Chancellor was trying to do was to look at immediate measures to try to help to ease us back into what people used to call normality. Nobody's got any idea whether it's going to work or not, and whether we get growth or not, who knows? Maybe industry is reshaping itself. I suspect it probably is. That's the big question. So growth and productivity. But you can't really answer those questions in one budget. There has to be something which is changing. No question that the UK economy is changing. As far as oil is concerned, everybody who depends upon revenue likes higher oil prices. Be careful of what you wish for, because there is a sweet spot, and history shows this, between $60 and $70 a barrel for oil, because it's not just about the producers, it's about the consumers as well. And if it's spiking up to this kind of $80 a barrel, maybe even over $100 a barrel, then that puts all sorts of industries back in play, including lots of industries that turn to green, lots of shale oil and the rest of it, which will fill the demand. So if it is going that way, it's not all good news. And as far as tech's concerned in the United States, well, we've seen the rotational trade, haven't we, from tech to more traditional stuff. Depending on what you feel about the recovery in the United States, do the more traditional industries like retail, service industry and the rest of it do well? Yes, they do. Remember the important thing about the United States, this is a good one, is that they did not have a furlough scheme. So in other words, there's not that huge amount of money to pay back in the same way that the UK does. So any increase in jobs is a real increase in jobs, as we saw on Friday. So I think that if you're asking me, I would say that there's a lot to run for in those traditional stocks as that rotational trade gathers speed.
Well, Mike, I would have loved to ask you a question about Yemen and Mark Lowcock, the UN humanitarian affairs man, complaining about the UK balancing the books on the back of Yemen. And I know you don't like to talk politics. And also, I would have loved to ask you about whether or not Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have burned their bridges with the royal family, with their famous interview with Oprah Winfrey. But I don't think we have enough time. In any case, maybe tomorrow, maybe I'll bring up the issues again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. For some weird reason, the song Hit the Road, Jack, Don't You Come Back No More is playing in my head after you talked about Harry and Meghan. All right, for updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesua Mora is here with us. Adesua, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Rufai. Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Tundu, and happy International Women's Day to you.
I wish you the same.
Although men have been infected more during this pandemic, women have been far worse affected during the pandemic because of loss of jobs, increased burdens at home, and of course, lack of access to health care.
An increase in domestic violence.
Indeed.
You should add that.
Indeed. Well, let's look at the global figures to have a direction of where the pandemic is at the moment. As of this morning, globally, there have been 116 million 0.1 confirmed cases of COVID-19, and including 2.59 million deaths reported. And according to the WHO, as of this morning, a total of 249,160,837 vaccine doses have been administered. Here in Nigeria, the Center for Disease Control recorded 269 cases of the coronavirus in the last 24 hours. And according to this latest data, the largest number of infections came from Enugu State, which is in southeast of Nigeria. It saw 78 cases, followed by Bauchi. Bauchi State came in with 37 cases. We did not see any data recorded for Lagos in the last 24 hours. And still in Nigeria, the presidency is assuring all citizens that the vaccine administered to President Muhammadu Buhari and his vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, during the weekend has no side effects on them. In a short communique put out to dispel fears and misconceptions about the safety of the vaccine administered, Garba Shehu, the senior special assistant to the president, said, all has remained normal after the jabs. Now, to commence the vaccination rollout in Nigeria, you will recall that Dr. Cyprian Ngong, a senior registrar at the National Hospital in Abuja, became the first person to receive the COVID-19 vaccine here in Nigeria, administered by the boss of the NPHCDA, Dr. Faisal Shuaib. Now, we're expecting that more government officials are expected to take their jabs today before it then heads to the states sometime this week. Before we go on a break, I'm sure you're prepping for that break. The 85-year-old Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, has received his first shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. Well, he offered to go to a public hospital, as you can see him there, where he was inoculated with the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, and he encouraged others to get vaccinated. He was observed for 30 minutes after the shot. India has recorded the second highest caseload in the world behind the United States, and it has rolled out its vaccination drive in January, starting with healthcare and frontline workers. Well, earlier this month, it expanded its inoculation drive to older people and those with medical conditions that put them at risk. So the Dalai Lama, we're told, was said to have insisted on going to a public hospital to get his jab, and that is him there after the jab, encouraging people to take their jabs. Well, I guess you're ready for the break. We'll go on the break.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk some more. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rising channel. We'll just move back to Adesso Omara. Adesso.
Thank you. Now, in an upbeat televised remarks on Sunday, Queen Elizabeth II, head of the Commonwealth, has praised people throughout the Commonwealth for uniting during this pandemic to commemorate, of course, the Commonwealth Day, while urging them to maintain the renewed sense of closeness and community. The Queen called the pandemic a time like no other. She also commended remarkable advances in developing new vaccines and treatment, and frontline healthcare workers for their selfless dedication to duty. And in Austria, the authorities have suspended inoculations with a batch of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine as a precaution while investigating the death of one person and the illness of another after the shot, the health agency in the country said. Now, one 49-year-old woman died as a result of severe coagulation disorders, while another 35-year-old woman developed a pulmonary embolism and is recovering. Both of them were nurses at the Lower Austrian province. Trials and real-world experience, as we have seen so far, suggest that the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is safe and effective and had been approved for use in well over 50 countries. Now, currently, Austria is saying that there is no evidence of a causal relationship with the vaccination, but they are just taking this precautionary measure to halt vaccination, especially from that batch.
Wow, we certainly hope the 35-year-old with a pulmonary embolism recovers speedily and totally. But that condition is also related to blood clots, isn't it?
Yes,
so I wonder if both ladies had some kind of pre-existing condition. I'm sure a full investigation will be done. But you'll recall, because you brought the story, that the WHO has the first of its kind global vaccine injury compensation fund for severe adverse reactions to any COVID-19 vaccination before June 2022. So it does say that they're anticipating some complications with certain individuals. It is quite worrying, so we do hope we get more information in this regard. It was good to see our president and vice president doing their duty and encouraging Nigerians to, register, fully participate, and the Dalai Lama as well, because he's massively influential all over the world. So I think all world leaders should try and adopt that sort of model, because he's a spiritual leader. The president and vice president are political leaders, all of them, cultural leaders, everybody should, as far as possible, be vaccinated publicly to serve as a sort of encouragement, which is needed right now.
Indeed.
President Buhari and Vice President Osinbajo and the Dalai Lama, they both took the AstraZeneca vaccine. What I do not know specifically is whether what was taken in Nigeria is a Covishield. Covishield is a version of the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine that is produced by the Serum Institute of India. India has 2 vaccines, Covishield and Covaxin, that is produced by Bharat Biotech. But whatever it is, the linkage of the vaccine taken by President Buhari and Vice President Osinbajo and the Dalai Lama is the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. And it is good to hear that there has been no side effects here on the part of our president, and that the Dalai Lama is also saying that everybody should take the vaccine. Celebrity endorsement will help to address the challenge of vaccine hesitancy. Yes. And for those Nigerians who have been waiting, who have been saying that they would like to see other people take it first, and then on the basis of that, they will also make up their own minds. Now the president has taken it, the vice president has taken it, health workers, led by one gentleman called Cynthia Young, who is a medical doctor, has also taken it. And we've been told that there have been no side effects. As to the efficacy of the AstraZeneca vaccine, with a report from Austria, now this is not the first time we've been told that persons who took the vaccine came up with certain side effects. Cases have been reported in California, in Brazil, but in all cases, as also in the Austrian case, there has been no attempt to connect it with the vaccine itself. In fact, there was a report, an up-to-date essay in the Lancet journal published on March 6, which even says that, look, when you take the low dose, the efficacy rate is, with regard to AstraZeneca vaccine, almost about 92%. But if you take the second dose, 12 weeks later, the efficacy is about 62%. And that particular journal article is saying that when the UK decided that perhaps the gap between the first dose, the low dose, and the second dose should be increased, that in fact there is some justification for it. Yeah, but in terms of overall efficacy, we know that the AstraZeneca vaccine is not at the same level as the Pfizer vaccine or the Moderna vaccine, but this latest article in the Lancet journal shows that in fact, there is no need for any anxiety or fears about the efficacy of the AstraZeneca vaccine. And to the extent that that is what we have chosen in Nigeria to adopt, I think that will also help as the federal government of Nigeria and the Presidential Task Force embark on the task of conscientizing Nigerians and mobilizing them to take the vaccine. But we'll keep watching. We'll keep expecting that there will be equity, there will be fairness, and there will be efficiency in terms of the deployment of the vaccines. Now that Nigeria has rolled out a national immunization program.
For me, I hope so too, but that's not reality as regards fairness, efficiency. In fact, some states have come out to say in the national dailies that they are confused as regards the process, of dispensing this vaccine. And we're really beginning to see those factors we constantly cried about. It's beginning to happen. And now that they are pegging the vaccine, I said this thing about a couple of weeks ago because I knew it was going to happen. Now they are pegging foreign travels with this vaccine passport or this vaccine badge, then it's going to go on steroids in this country. We're going to see a mass case of corruption, vaccine hoarding, favoritism, and all sorts. States like Delta and other states are already complaining. Please, we want the authorities in charge of distributing this vaccine to step up to its responsibility. We shouldn't put the Nigerian factor in giving vaccines to people. I wouldn't say more than that, but we all know the Nigerian factor. It shouldn't be the case here because we need herd immunity and we need it to go well. States are already complaining as regards this. And some people are still coming up to talk the way they've been talking before. People like some state governor that keep saying COVID is not in their states. It is time to rein the person in, please. Because if that man is not reined in, we will jeopardize the vaccine effort in the states. Because it falls on him. It is time to rein that man in. But let's not allow this continue.
The person you are referring to is the governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. and he's been very specific. He says, look, COVID-19 is not a priority for him in Kogi State, but that if COVID-19 vaccines are provided for Kogi State, he would mobilize efforts to make sure that those who want to take it, take it. But that he personally is healthy, he is strong, and he does not believe in the idea of the vaccine. Yesterday, I had the privilege of interviewing on this same station Dr. Mukhtar Muhammad, who is the acting national coordinator of the presidential task force in the absence of Dr. Ali Usman, who I understand traveled. And he made it clear that they will ensure justice, they will ensure fairness. But we hope that that will happen, because we have had a previous experience in this country with the distribution of COVID-19 palliatives. There was no justice, there was no fairness. We have had similar experience also with the distribution of testing kits donated by the Alibaba Foundation and other agencies for COVID-19. We did not see justice or equity. We hope that this time around there will be transparency, there will be fairness, there will be justice, and that people who need the vaccine would have access to it.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Abati. Thank you so much, Adeso.